This is a homage beat.
This, that, and the third. But no, if there's someone who reigns supreme, then like you said, I've got to submit to that person who reigns supreme. By nature, we do not want to submit. I want to think that I'm the one who reigns, but I say again, arguing from someone who does not come from a biblical worldview, it's like our eyes bear witness that men are a microscopic vapor in comparison to the universe. I've seen one of these videos like on Facebook or something where it like shows the Earth and it shows the planets, Mars and this, that, and the third, and you just see how small Earth is.
Right.
And then it goes and it shows you the sun, and then it goes and it shows you all these stars and other galaxies and just how much bigger these things are in comparison to the sun, and let alone the Earth. And you're just like, oh my goodness, how grand.
I'm in that
exactly. And I'm in just the Earth, and I know how minuscule that I am. And it's like, I can see this, and again, and even though I'm trying to like make a point that's not deriving from scripture, but it just made me think of that verse in Psalms. It says, when I look at the heavens and the work of your finger, the moon, the stars, which you have set in place, it says, what is man that you are mindful of me? I say, even if one denies God, one cannot deny how small one is in the grand scheme of things.
That's right.
Our ability to see bears witness that we have absolutely nothing to do with sustaining the universe. Wow. The planets are held in suspension and revolve around the sun. The stars and the moon shine at night. The planets arrange themselves in order. Without the ability to see, we would not know any of this. God sought to reveal himself, and the universe declares his glory. God has given us sight so that we can see what he has done. And I say this, do you find it ironic that, in antiquity, like this is the thing that I always have with like people who subscribe to evolution and believe that Earth is like millions and millions of years old. Like evolution is only a product of 300 years ago.
Okay.
Right. So if evolution is true, will we not see other places of it in antiquity?
Right.
Like why is it only when Charles Darwin comes with this?
Why is it now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if a man literally evolved from an ape-like creature, why is there no writings of this prior to Charles Darwin? But what do you see prior to Charles Darwin? People believing in a deity.
Right.
That's all right. Throughout antiquity, not necessarily Christian people, but people, Hebrews, whoever it was, ancient Near East, Egypt, they always believed in some kind of deity.
That's right.
There's no hint of a human being evolving into an ape-like creature. It's always a deity. Right. Now we would say their deity is wrong, but they always believe in some sort of deity. But it's like, they couldn't see what we can see now. They didn't have telescopes.
That's right.
And they drew these conclusions. So it's like, how can we see more than our ancestors and still deny that there's a God? And we look at them like they're idiots. Yeah. And it's like, we can see more than what they could see.
Right.
And I said, and that was my question. Do you find it ironic that, they could see less than us, but yet they believed in a deity, and we can see more, and we're like, there's no God. There's no way. It's like, are you serious? Like, your eyes are telling you right here.
Wow. Yeah, it speaks to the historical ignorance, I think, with the age of enlightenment. So I think you have this age of time where humans are like this, it's a blimp, right? It's nothing on God's foresight, but really this age where human capacity is supposed to have come up to a crescendo. It's like the height of intellectual science, everything is peaked. And it produces
more stupidity.
Yeah, right. And so I think, it's a product of the disavowing and relying on disavowing one greater and then looking within oneself. And so I think what it looks like is it really we are now age of enlightenment, or these post children that we are of that age. I think we're just a product of that. And so we're like the fruit of that. And so our belief system are really suicidal in a lot of ways. And they really leave us without hope even more. Yeah. And it leaves us even further away from, who we are, who we're created to be. And so and so I think that exchange, to me, it seems like, even outside of the Christian worldview, it's more detrimental, because like you said, this dependency that we have on nature, yet we're able to harness it and utilize it, but then we have this dependency that I think the previous generation were able to lean on it in a way that they knew there's no way, if the rain doesn't come, the sun doesn't come, the crops don't come up. They just don't. We starve and die. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm not even by the sea or the ocean, I can't fish.
Yeah.
If I'm 500 miles in, it's a wrap, man.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get that no if my livestock die. You know, so I think there was a dependency. So yeah, I mean, and then you had the age of agriculture kind of subside, so technology rise. So I think the timing is interesting, but yeah, definitely stupider people.
Yeah, and it's like I always, and I think we view those who have gone before us that we're smarter than them.
Yeah,
because the belief in a deity is always seen as archaic. Like, even in an academic circle, you say you're a creationist, they look at you like you're an idiot. And it's like, no, like, you the ones, and it's like so crazy, and I didn't say this verse earlier, but it's like in Jeremiah and there's other places in scripture says, some have eyes but not see. Like, you literally have eyes, and again, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it's almost like that. I think the Matrix had like some biblical themes in it, where it's like the world that you're looking at isn't really the world that it is. You know, so you seeing things right there before you, but yet you can't see the truth, the reality of it. That what you see, all these things that what again. Everything that you see was created. Literally everything that you see was created. But yet the one thing that we see that no man can ascribe any creation to it, we deny that it was created by a creator.
Yeah.
But literally everything that we see is created, and not only is created, but uses nature to create it. But yet we say, oh, yeah, clearly someone created, but no one created nature. And again, go ahead.
I mean, the self-denial is interesting, because even outside of the Christian worldview, if God created us, we depend on nature, we didn't create it, we have to depend on nature to live. It's like that we depend on this to live, and if I'm denying the creator of that, who also created me, I'm actually denying part of myself. And so I say that, somewhere in that, regardless of coming to faith in Jesus, that's why I say suicidal, because it almost is a form of self-denial woven into that, because we didn't create ourselves. And so it's almost, it creates this huge gamut of duplicity, of double-mindedness, and I think really affects how we live, our emotional stability, whether it comes to mental issues or how we do life. I just think there's all kinds of other things that we could probably point to that are evidences of walking in this self-denial, which is rejecting God in a big sense, but then there's also a denial of who we actually are, who we are created.
I think that's really, really powerful, because I speak of something I haven't put in the book, but I've always thought about it. Once I've gone through those topics, there's just a common theme that stuck out to me, where it's like I just termed it like the great reversal. So in denying God, like, instead of seeking God, we would look to creation. So, for example, if I don't find my truth in God, I find it in nature. Again, what is the appeal for the atheist? It's nature. That nature, just Big Bang, just these things happen. This is what I appeal to. And going back to your point about suicidal, it's suicidal especially when it comes, the very first chapter of my book was what gives you worth and value. If there's no God, I find my worth and value in what my job.
That's right.
I find my worth and value in how much money I make,
That's
what
right.
car I drive. I find all these things in what creation, when God is saying, no, I'm the one who's giving you worth and value. But in denying that, what? We see all the ills that we have today.
Right.
What? We see, we don't value women, the Me Too and Time's Up, all these things. That what? God has already told us that women are made in the image of God. They deserve as much honor and dignity as a man. But no one views women this way.
That's right.
Racism. The issue with that, and listening to all the people who are, critiquing Black Panther and this, that, and the third. And like I said, there's extremes on both sides.
Right.
But it's like, what happens when historically that people have found their worth in race and looked at another race as inferior.
Right.
That happens when what? I'm not looking to my creator for worth
right.
and value. I'm looking to what? Creation for worth
Yeah.
and value.
That's
So I think that was super huge that you said it's suicidal. And we see the results when we've denied God.
That's
it
a
goes
catastrophe.
the fall, the continual fall, and it's like, you were always supposed to look to your creator.
And that's, wow.
He's proved himself to you.
Yeah, because we're not meant to find our satisfaction in these things around us. So they cannot sustain us. They can't. So the limits to everything around us is rusting, is rotting, right? It's aging. So Yeah, and I think then that's the part where our hope runs out, right? And even if we lie to ourselves and say, okay, look, we deny it all, but then what you do have, that hope won't give you real hope. It's not gonna give you real satisfaction.
Nah, and so I continue. I say again, just reiterating this point that I've made several times already. Denying God is not a matter of seeing; it is a matter of desire. One can clearly see God's work in creation, but this only proves that there's a creator. It doesn't necessarily prove it's the God of the Bible. It just means that someone created it. I said, therefore, when one looks around and sees the present corruption, and one questions why God would create such a place, instead of trying to understand why this is, one denies the idea of a creator altogether. And like I said, I always wanted to just be faithful. I hated like just cookie cutter stuff that didn't get down to the bulk of it. And we've been talking through this throughout the whole time, and I'm sure those who are listening are probably wondering, okay, if God is so powerful, why did he create someone to be born blind? You know, this may be a reason why people deny an omnipotent creator. If God is truly powerful, why would he create someone who is blind? And these are questions that we've got to wrestle with ourselves.
Right.
Because we are advocating God is omnipotent, God can do all these things, but yet 39 million people are without sight. And it's like someone who's objecting to these, how do we respond? And I do respond. And I just say this, that the blind person God didn't make a mistake, number one. Let's be clear with that he did it for a reason. And I'm on the side that I argue that God created blind people because he was teaching us something. Are there any lessons that you can think that a blind person is able to teach us?
Yeah, I think trusting in the provision of another. It speaks to someone blind, who is blind, doesn't really has to go off of like a level of, in order to survive, that they're leaning on their caretakers, they're leaning around people in their space, and many, I'm sure, have experienced being sabotaged and being abused or being hurt by caretakers that weren't. So I think, yes, trusting to the point of survival in those around you is probably the biggest one that comes to mind when it comes to what lessons people could drop on.
That's good. I give that one. I give two, essentially. I say the blind person teaches us to not take our eyesight for granted, number one, because we take it for granted. We don't realize there's people who can't see. It's like, if we were just to do like an exercise and just blindfold ourselves and just do it for maybe 5 minutes, like how, like we would go nuts. We would go nuts, you know, but these people have to live their entire lives this way. And we just take it for granted that we can see. You know, we don't even give it a second thought. We're just like, oh, I woke up and I can see. And it's like, no, this is a gift.
That is a gift.
It is a gift.
Absolutely.
And if it's a gift, then who gave me this gift? And again, that's what I was going back to earlier, where it's like these people, Charles Darwin, for example, and I don't think he meant anything by it, but his belief, his theories birthed into evolution that we see. But all he was doing was observing nature and saying, okay, this is how it seems to happen, that this evolved into that and that evolved into that. But the only way he can come to that conclusion is what? Because he has eyes to see. If he didn't have eyes to see, he couldn't make these deductions. How grateful can he be for making these deductions because he has the ability to see? But science can't answer why we have the ability to see. Scripture is the only thing that can answer it. Then come and see what the Lord has done. You can see his work. You can see his work. Everything that was created we see, except nature. But nature is the product of God. And so the second lesson that I say that a blind person teaches us is exactly what you said. Those who can see take it for granted and cling to this false sense of independence. Thus, we are less likely to trust others. Those who cannot see are extremely dependent on others. Thus, must trust in others to survive. Though one wants to exercise caution when it comes to trusting others, this is not